Welcome, everybody, to Spirituality Adventures. This is a non-judgmental place to explore spirituality, and we're so glad you're here. This is a viewer and listener-supported podcast, so we greatly appreciate your support. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, share, and subscribe to any of the social media content platforms that you're using. And then if you go to our website, spiritualityadventures.com, you can make a one-time donation, or with a monthly subscription, you'll gain access to our bonus content. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome, everybody, to Spirituality Adventures. We're glad you joined us. We are excited to interview Cuee Wright today.
Yes.
Cuee is a artist, MC, DJ host, scholar, and I'm excited to have this opportunity to interview Cuee. He is up in Connecticut right now.
Yes.
And kind of missed the huge freeze that went through the land of America here these last few days, evidently. But we're a little colder in KC than you are in Connecticut right now, I think.
Yeah, never would have imagined, but here we are.
Yeah. So Matt Cox is my producer, and I think you and Matt met in Lawrence at some point in time ago. Is that right?
At some years ago.
No. So the first time Cuee and I met was at the Blind Covers filming in Northtown.
I was just about to say that, in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Yep.
Blind Covers. Yeah. So we've interviewed a few of the people that Matt did on Blind Covers.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
That was a fun time.
Yeah, definitely. That was a fun project. I really enjoyed those.
That was, yeah. That's when I knew I was a versatile artist at that point. I was like, okay, yeah, I could do this.
That was super cool.
It's like freestyling.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a different format. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, so let's jump into your story a little bit. Where were you born? Tell us a little bit about your growing up years. Kind of what were your parents, family like? Your influences early on in life.
So I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I was actually born in Oak Park, if that's serious to anybody, but that's across the border. Grew up in the city. My parents divorced when I was in like third, fourth grade, second. I don't remember. Somewhere around that time. But they co-parented really well. They would probably say so when they were younger, totally different. But my perspective was they did a really good job. Still, my dad came around a lot, still took us to school. So he helped my mom a lot. She worked full time. Was also lived with my grandma. So she lived with us. So she plays a big influence in a lot of my music, like a lot of the stuff that I do, say, things like that. So growing up in Chicago was pretty cool. Big Bulls fan, big Bears fan, but I am a Patriots fan. So I am glad to be on the East Coast. Also a Chiefs fan though. So
yeah,
you play the Chiefs often out here. So it's pretty sad, but grew up in Chicago.
Is your mom still in Chicago?
So she moved to Iowa.
Okay.
Later. When I went to college, she moved to Iowa.
Okay.
So she's in Iowa now. My dad's still in Chicago. And so when I go home, I go to Chicago, and then I take that hour-and-a-half drive to Iowa, go visit my mom. And then
Got
it's
it.
like a whole thing.
Any siblings?
Yes. So both of my parents are remarried. And so I have tons of step siblings. I do have a brother. So brother.
Older or younger?
Younger.
Okay.
Younger brother. I'm the oldest.
Okay.
Yeah, right. The oldest, younger brother, he's down in Dallas, Texas. Now he played football in college. He went to Grandview in Iowa, played football, into like the little sports guy. He's a little workout guy. My little best friend, my little broke best friend, I would say. Dallas. We're really close. We both grew up in the church, like I said. So we grew up in church. I grew up Baptist.
Black Baptist.
Black Baptist. I was in a choir, Black Baptist church every Sunday school.
Was this, so let me ask you this, because I'm pretty networked with the African American church community in Kansas City.
Okay.
So some of the black churches are very much kind of more liberal, social gospel, kind of in the political side of things. And then there's a church called Macedonia Baptist Church, which is one of the largest churches in Kansas City. And it's more conservative, no women preachers, the LGBTQ issue wouldn't be they wouldn't be affirming and.
Yep.
So which kind of Baptist were you growing up?
My family's definitely was growing up on the right side, like the conservative side, right?
Okay.
That Baptist church was no women in pants that I can remember. I think they've made a lot of shifts and changes now. I haven't been back to the church. I'm one of the ones that you said grew up in a church and then haven't really been back. So I'm one of those. So I can't really speak on what they do now. But when I was there was no women in pants. There were only men pastors for sure. You couldn't dare. I probably would have. Now that I look back, I'm like, there were so many queer folks in our church. Oh my gosh. But they wouldn't have said it. Like even one of the choir director, what?
Yeah.
Not at all.
But you didn't talk. Nobody talked about it.
Nobody talked about it, but I think he was welcoming in a sense that everybody knew. They just didn't say anything. And showed up and they were there for church and only and the word, get the things from the pastor. Right. So traditional in the sense that, church ran over an hour all the time. It was like, oh, we're going to be here someday. This is the day,
Yeah.
And so we did that and I ended up.
So you sang in the choir?
Yeah, I did sing in the choir.
So you cut your musical chops in church kind of thing.
Church, yes. I was singing it out. I remember my first little solo. I was so nervous. But yes, I was singing.
That's the thing about the church is, as much as it's kind of, hurt some people along the way.
Yeah.
So many people got their musical start in the church. It's crazy,
It's a lot of our first stages. And I'm a big fan. Me and Silky, that's who Matt and I worked with, one of our last projects with drag star Silky Nutmeg Ganache, who also grew up in the church. And so we talk about that a lot, and growing up so queer in the church and looking back now, we're like, yo.
Yeah.
Pastors now are like, they love us, and they know, and so, but it still was an experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I have a friend who leads the largest African-American church in Kansas City is a Black Baptist church. And the lady that leads the choir is a friend of mine. And she's like maybe 40, early 40s. And two of her kids are in the LGBTQ community, and she loves the heck out of them, but, she doesn't know how to make that work with her church's theology, that kind of thing. It's really interesting.
And I just want all of them to know it has nothing to do with them or God. And once they know that and figure that out, then they'll be good to go. But
yeah. So for people who are listening who don't know why we're mentioning these things, at some point in your life, you were born female.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you, in the last 4 or 5 years,
since 2019-ish.
Since 2019.
Yeah.
Transitioned.
Shameless. Yeah.
Yeah. And so growing up in this Black Baptist church, tell us give us a little clue, give us straight white people a little clue. What is that like to grow up in a Black Baptist church, and at some point in your personal identity, you start wrestling with your sexual identity? How did that emerge, and how did that play out for you? What age did you start thinking about that stuff?
That's since I was young, I didn't talk about it often though. It was like, you keep quiet, you hear everything around you and you're like, It wasn't until, I had the opportunity to go to boarding school in high school. So I went to a college prep boarding school in Indiana. And we also had to practice some sort of religion when we went there. They didn't have Baptists at the time. So I switched to Protestant services, which was as close to Christianity that they had outside of. No, that's all they had first.
Okay.
And that's where all the Black people went. We went to Protestant services. We formed our gospel choir there. And then we had our community. And that was the first experience within religion that I was coming out in this high school, right? And so I get here in this space, this place, and I'm like, there are other people like me here. Oh, okay. Let me kind of come out and figure out what this is about. So I remember reaching out to my mom. She was not so happy in the beginning. I would say more or less confused. I wasn't also very honest. I didn't know how to be honest about it. I'm like, I heard so many people talking so much mess. I'm just trying to maneuver conversation. And so the first thing she mentions is, we're going to go talk to pastor about this.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, here we go. I do not want to go home for the holidays. Because at the time I was still coming home from high school and we would still go to church. We were still going to church. And so I was like dreading this moment to come home. Got home. We went to church. I guess they had a conversation. We always went to pastor's house after, even though my mom married and he became my grandfather, I just always still call him pastor. That's just been the thing. And so we went to his house afterward, and then we got people, we all went into the bedroom afterward, and my mom was trying to he's coming out, he's this, what the heck is going on? And the pastor, that was the moment where I think I was able to take a difference between the church, God, really, I was able to dissect it all. And he was just like, we may not be everything everybody want us to be, but I don't think that he would choose this path if it wasn't true or if it was like this. I wholeheartedly accept him. And that was the first time I heard pastor ever say anything like that.
Huh. Well, that's good.
Right. It was really good. And my mom was like, what the, it was kind of like, you're supposed to be on my side,
Yeah.
And the pastor's like, I preach this word and and it was just one of those moments where I was like, okay, so if everybody in the church is not feeling me, I could still have faith. I could still be very spiritual. I could still believe what I need to believe, but I don't need to surround myself maybe around folks who have all of these opinions, all of this. And I'm like, hey, let's not even get on your lifestyle or those things, or anything in that nature. And so that was one of the experiences that I think a lot of people cannot say they have in the Baptist church.
Right.
Up in the church, but the pastor really came through. Pastor was like,
that's good news. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, actually that doesn't not make sense for me. And so, I was affirmed as a young churchgoer, as a young Baptist kid, at least from my pastor. I wouldn't say now his wife felt totally different,
Okay.
Lady was nose up, she was a little different about things, but
Yeah. So that was in high school then? You were 16, 17, 8, somewhere in there?
Or 13, 14. I came home. That was my first semester freshman year of college.
Okay.
Coming in
and were you
college, high school.
Were you thinking that you were gay? Were you thinking that you were attracted to women? Were you just thinking that you identified more with as a man?
Yeah, I knew I was attracted to women. I had no idea what trans meant.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Yeah.
I had no idea what that was. And so I knew I really loved. I was like, okay, I don't like men. They're cool, my friends, but I'm not really attracted to. I don't get any. I don't feel the same things my friends talk about when they talk about these men around here on this. And I'm like, and then there was another part of me that also was I felt really weird going into women's restrooms. I felt really weird in the women's locker room. And I remember communicating that with my basketball coach when I went to high school. And he will open up the visitors locker room. And I was just I just don't feel comfortable. I just want to, be by myself. And I'm like, that's because I know I'm attracted to women. I like women. And I don't want to be in occupied spaces with them at the same time. So I want to be separated. And so I've always felt that internally. And I don't think a lot of trans folks can name that, right? Think about that in that moment when they're like, this is why I'm actually feeling different in the women's restroom. I don't belong in here. Like I don't. And so that's what the big thing mean. Like,
yeah. One of my close friends is a trans woman, and she went to my church in the 90s as a man married with kids.
Yeah.
And then she's now probably in her late 40s and started transitioning 6 years ago. If you can imagine doing that as a white man in your 40s with two young boys that were in their 20s, you know. So like, holy crud, you know, and but she has been one of my really close friends over the last 3 years, all that I've gone through. And as we're actually getting a master's at KU right now to help work with trans kids and LGBTQ, all that kind of stuff, you know. So at any rate, but yeah, so interesting. These journeys that life takes us on, isn't it?
Yes. I never would have known. I knew. And like I tell folks all the time, I always knew. I just didn't have the words, didn't have the education, didn't have the knowledge or the community to help me at the time.
Yeah. So you graduate from the prep school in high school and head to KU. Is that right?
Yes. So went to KU, good old Kansas. Was there for my undergrad and grad. So I was there for a little bit.
What were your degrees?
Did journalism, Stratcom, African American Studies in my undergrad, and then higher education administration in grad school. So
very cool.
College forever.
What year did you graduate with your master's?
2017.
Okay. Have you worked in that field? Any of those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so right after, so in grad school, my first and second years, I was a graduate assistant in the Office of Admissions. And so that was my bread and butter. I wanted to do access, especially for students of color. I wanted to get them into colleges or try to figure out somewhere where they could go when they left high school. And so that was my big push. So I stayed in the admissions office at post-grad. And I work specifically with the Student Ambassador Program and multicultural recruitment. I did that for 2 years, and then I went to the Career Center and I started doing social media. I worked as their social media marketing guru person for like another 1.5 years, 2 years. And then last September, I quit higher education, quit KU, went on tour, and it's like, now I want to figure out my life as a musician. So it was a big switch.
Yeah, definitely. So you've been doing full-time musician since September?
Last year, yes.
Yeah, so a little over a year.
Like social media marketing with nonprofits and stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, cool. So I want to dive into your music career, but before we do that, I don't know why this popped in my head, but one of the families that went to my church was the Obajis.
Yes.
And so Ochai's dad is African and went on a basketball scholarship to the University of Wisconsin. And his mom is African American, who was at University of Wisconsin on a volleyball scholarship.
Oh.
And I mean, his dad is, close to 7 foot. I don't know how tall he is, 6'10" maybe. And they started coming to the church, and we were pretty much a white suburban church, but we had Asians, Latinos, and African Americans, but just not in big numbers, right? And so the family started coming. His older sister went on full scholarship to UT, and she was one of our announcement gals at church. Uh-huh. And my dad and I would go to Ochai's basketball games. He was playing for Oak Park. He was all conference, in high school in Kansas City. And my dad and I would sit with his whole family and his uncles and his aunts and his parents and, all that stuff. And my dad's still alive. He's still 87. We still love basketball together. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so since you're a KU basketball fan, that's been the
And
only.
KU football. KU football.
Okay. Well, this year you had a little bit to cheer about. So, but yeah, at any rate, yeah. So I just made me think of that's the only KU basketball player that I've actually ever known in person. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
I know a few of them.
yeah. So let's talk about your musical career. For folks who haven't listened, I want to encourage you to go to cuemusic.com, CUEE music.com.
Yes.
You can check out the website there. And then on all the music platforms, you've got a 2018 album that came out called Shameless, a 2021 album called Gospel, and then recently released a single, On the Move.
Yes.
In August of this year, 2022. This will probably release in 2023, this interview, but we're talking here at the very end of 2022. So, yeah. So what kind of music were you drawn to young? And then what did you start, how did your musical career start emerging?
It's a great question. Musical interests when I was young, it's all over the place. I love gospel music, essentially. So I love gospel music.
Who are some of the gospel people you would Black gospel stuff?
Yeah. Obviously I'm a big Kirk Franklin fan.
Okay.
No, Tamala Man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Travis Green or there's some young Black
I like
guys. Fred Hammond.
I like Fred Hammond.
Yeah.
I like Fred Hammond.
Mm-hmm.
Todd Tribbett. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just curious.
And outside of that, house music. I was really big into house music growing up.
Okay.
Chicago. It's kind of like techno-ish rap. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
DJ set type stuff. And then lyrically, like I was listening to like a lot of like Missy Elliott, Ludacris, LL Cool J. So could definitely tell my parents had the radio at the time. And so I was listening to a lot of that type of music. When I started listening to music as a youngin, I was like into like the big boy bands for sure. Growing up, I was into like B2K and like Bow Wow and Romeo and like all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up listening to them, really into hip hop rap from a young age. I was writing poetry when I was young. When my mom met my stepfather, he was a DJ, house DJ in Chicago.
So are you just doing that on your, like writing poetry for school or just on your own or just?
Both.
Huh.
I used to write poetry by myself. My mom probably still has totes, but I still find composition books.
Yeah.
I look back at my spelling and I'm like, oh my gosh, but I was just going at it, and I was
interesting.
Like, my brother still remembers like one of the first little freestyle songs I was rapping when I was in like 3rd grade. I used to rap it around the house all the time, and it was like everywhere I go, I'm the popular one. It was like to some Jay-Z song I did back in the day, and so I was always writing. And I've always used to see myself as an artist, as a musician when I was young. And there was nobody really in my immediate family that really were musicians, but I used to say it all the time. My mom was like, used to be like, yeah, I'm gonna be a rapper. And this.
So like your mom wasn't singing in the choir or doing any of that? Nothing. Okay. Huh.
Nope.
Interesting.
My stepfather is a DJ. He was a DJ.
Okay.
And so that was kind of where I kind of saw that at, like started getting experiences around that. But it was just, I always was like, I like words, I like music, and I like to put them together. And so I was a kid that was always in my room with the radio loud, but not really out talking to a lot of people in the house. So that was how I grew up. It was like, oh, I'm gonna be listening to some music, making CDs, playlists, writing out all the lyrics. I used to write out lyrics to songs when the CDs used to come out so that I knew the lyrics. Like that. I used to get really into it. I remember I used to try to like sound engineer with my karaoke machine and cassette tapes from Walgreens and like try to like record from I was doing a lot of like I talk about. And so I was always fascinated with some kind of music thing. I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to be a musician. I want to be a part of it. I want to be in it. Always liked how music tells stories, and how you can open up. You can talk about anything. It can be the truth. It can be a lie. It can be anything. You can express in music. And so I really appreciated that a lot. And so grew up just doing that, and then made it a full-time gig later on in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you do your first like performance outside of church? Like when you were,
Good question. High school. High school, I did a talent show. It was not performing in front of the church people. It was performing in front of my school, and I did one of the remix songs I did to, at the time, I think it was Ludacris, Runaway Love, and I don't remember the other song, but I remember the Runaway Love. It was a song. Oh, it was Eminem, Not Afraid too. It was two remixes, and I performed those at the talent show.
Okay.
That was my performance ever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when did you start like doing regular gigs? Like, or consistently?
Second year of grad school is when I almost quit grad school. And I was like, I just want to be a musician. I think I did enough schooling. I'm not, I think I took a music business class at KU. In my grad school years, they let me take it as an elective. And I'm like, let me see what this is about. And after taking that class, that's when I knew I should have been doing this a while ago. And I was like, yo, I really need to dive into it. It's a lot more to music than my creative parts that I'm putting in. It's like 80% business, and I really want to learn this part. I'm a great student, and so let me see if I can figure this out. And so it was the second year of grad school. All of my professors were like, Q, please just finish. Like, you are almost there. Like, couple more classes. And I'm like, under these conditions, because I sold myself short this long. And so it was like, we all came together. And there was a guy in my grad school program. He was a part of KU Dance Marathon. They host the biggest KU thing on campus. They were looking for entertainers at the time. And my fee was pretty low at that moment, and so they were like, hey, would you like to perform? And so that was my first performance that I had in years. I would say that would signify my actual first performance that started my career.
And then were you doing your own stuff at that point?
Yep.
Or so remixing stuff?
Nope.
You're doing okay.
Yep. I had that was in 2017. And so I had just released Shameless. Not in 2000, it was in 2018. So I had just released Shameless. I was working on Shameless, and I was getting ready to release it in that summer. That was the spring of, so I still had everything. And so I performed that stuff, that material there, and a few remixes too at the time, but it was mainly the Shameless stuff like Blessed, and a couple of those Shook, those on the stage at the time.
Shook, you were singing about you're attracted to those curls.
Curls, yes. Yes. It's so funny. My partner now is a whole symbol of Shook. And so people are like, you manifested her. And I'm like, we never know. But she definitely got tight curls and natural hair, and I love it. So
very good. Well, I could kind of relate to that.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a gal that I have been connected with in Ethiopia for quite a long while now. And
that's why you've been going to Ethiopia, huh?
Yeah. Well, and I started going there for church, work and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, yeah. Yeah. So
we can hang out later.
I was like, yeah. It's like, oh, I can relate to that. Yeah, who would have thought, right?
They're a little different.
You do these music things, and who knows who connects.
That's the one thing I love about the music business so far is I've connected. My path has taken me places that I've never thought I would go and be. And so I've been enjoying it a lot.
Mm-hmm. So Shameless. So you were already, I mean, that whole album is obviously taking you in this direction of coming out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That 2018 album. When you were performing your 2018 album, how were you dressing live?
Ooh,
I was just like, because
I
I,
go ahead.
I'm just curious, like, because I'm trying to picture what you're singing about, really transitioning. And so were you,
I was always masculine. I think
okay.
mask presenting figure about me. I was trying to figure out what I was trying to say. Very mass presented. I think I hid more of that in high school, like that transitional part of like,
Okay.
my mom would leave for work and then I would change my clothes and then I would like go to school in what I wanted to wear and then
Mm-hmm.
hurry up and change before she came back and be like, don't take pictures of me at school. We laugh about it now. She's like, why don't you have pictures in high school? And be like, whoa, funny story. Let me tell you. Processing that. But when I was hitting the stages at the time, what I how do I say this? What I didn't know bothered me until now, but it didn't bother me much then was like, my voice, right? So I look back at videos and I'm like, oh shit, like that's me. Like, oh, okay. Or even just body, right? I had top surgery this past year and like after having top surgery in June, I was like, these past 6 months have been the best 6 months of my life. I was on FaceTime with my mom the other day and she was like, I haven't seen you wear that shirt in a long time. And I was like, let me tell you, this shirt didn't fit right before today. Okay. So it wasn't that I hated the shirt. It was just, I hated how the shirt fit. And so that is what I look back on. So a lot of videos or like even music videos or anything in that sense. And I'm like, I wasn't really like in it as much as I want to be in it. That as I am now. And like, I haven't even gotten that chance to really dive into it yet. Post transition, post surgery, because I've been healing. And so 2023 is going to be a big year. I'm excited.
Your pictures look amazing.
Thank you. I love my circle so much.
Yeah.
Once a month. I'm like, yo, Carol, you did an amazing job.
Well, some of whoever did your photographs that you've put out there look really sharp.
Thank you. I signed with a management team about 2 months ago, which has been very great. I've been knocking goals off my list. I'm like, I got a faith over fear tattooed on my arm about 2 years ago. And so that was a reminder to me to like lean into anything that was scary because there's always great things on the other side. And that was what I felt like quitting my job in higher ed and then management team. And so you talk about the cool photos and I'm like, yeah, they kind of were like, we're going to get you some great photos now. So I've been working with a cool photographer out of Kansas City.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Who's been helping me kind of like aesthetically bring my story to life on Instagram. So it's good for folks, And so I'm appreciative of that.
Yeah, good. And then your album Gospel, why did you pick the title Gospel?
Now you know I picked that title.
Well, I just want to hear you say it. I don't know if I'm tracking with you.
It was speaking my truth. It was coming out and it was playing on my past and who I am as a person. And I don't take that out, take that away from me. Like Ain't Going Back was a big symbol of that in the music video. And I was adamant about doing it in the church. I really wanted to do it in a Baptist church, but I didn't have access to those spaces and places. And I wanted to queer out that church in a sense. And so I had one of my good friends, Cody Charles, start off that music video with a nice little speech for us all to kind of take back and listen to an actual sermon, as I would say, to kind of start off. And so gospel was me speaking my truth, me coming out, and me being unapologetic about it.
Gospel truth.
Yes.
The gospel truth. You know, it's interesting as I've pastored lots of people through the years, and you know, when you get behind the scenes and people drop the masks and the facades and everything, everybody's got a story. Everybody's got some struggle. It's it's never been easy for anybody navigating our own, you know, our own sexuality is such an interesting and sometimes complicated thing, you know, and relationships and all of that. And I think I'm curious what you might think, because I know I've learned a lot from the LGBTQ community myself. I'm curious though, what do you wish people could learn from your experience? Like just straight white heterosexual Fred here. What could I learn from Cuee, who's gone through so much? And
I've had great experiences with you right now, so I'm.
Say what?
I said I've been having a good time with you right now. So usually I would have an answer right off rip, you know. But, Listen. I think listen. I think a lot of folks come in with their opinions, or you know, like you said, come in with facades. We already have so many layers up that we realize that we don't have layers, or you don't have layers, right? And they may not look like the person who's trying to figure out their sexuality and their identity and all of that, but it doesn't make it any difference. And so I think just listening to folks and hearing them out, and like you said, once you learn who someone is outside of an identity, outside of who they want to sleep with, which that should be not it be anybody's business outside of the person they sleeping with. People, none of my business, you know. And so I think that's the takeaway. And one of the things I'm learning as a person in the community who is still learning about folks in the community, right? And identities in the community, and like it's a learning experience for everybody. It's like I think some folks think on the outside, since they don't hold these identities, that they don't have everything, they don't know everything, and that is very true. But everybody who hold our identities also don't have everything, and we also don't know everything, and we're all just trying to learn together. And if we learn in love instead of anything else, you know, something else, I think we'll all have experiences.
Yeah,
we're all humans, you know, trying to figure it out.
It's so like for me, like how do you like this? Just I'm pose this question, and I'll lean into it a little bit, but how do you be true to yourself? And like for me, I felt called to be a pastor when I was like 16 or 17, and I followed that, did it, felt like I was always living out what like this idea of what God had called me to be. And then when I went to rehab, and all of that went down, I lost my community that I built. I lost my career. I lost, my marriage. I lost, like a lot of the pillars that I had spent 40 years, 4 decades in this identity, Pastor Fred, identity. And then it all is just gone. And then I'm like, who the F am I? And I really questioned and doubted and had lots of disbelief about everything I'd ever believed. And, I'm well studied. I've got a bachelor's in religion, a master's of divinity. I've got a doctorate of ministry. I was working on a PhD in the Hebrew Bible. I mean, I've been a Bible teacher my whole life. And then all of a sudden I'm going, I don't even, I question everything, rethought everything. I got into meditation group. I got into, started trying to learn things that, that would help me heal. Got into therapy. I got into recovery. I got into meditation, just things that helped me heal. And then almost like reprocess this, who is this creature, Fred, that I don't even know I know. I don't even know if I know myself anymore, and I'm 60, dude. I'm 61, And so like, it's been such a crazy journey for me to have to dig deep and like, okay, well, where am, what's my,
where am I?
yeah,
What do I need?
yeah.
Sitting with yourself is I say all the time is one person I really didn't like sitting with for a long time. And that is when you don't like that, you know, if you can't sit with yourself and like think through stuff, that's deep, you know? And so,
Yeah. Did you ever go through a time when you were trying to fight your own identity in this area? You didn't ever feel like you were hating yourself at any point?
internally, a part of me, I'm so rebellious in the fact, like, I've always kind of just been so like, well, fine, you know, like I've always been like, well, then bye, you know,
like F you. See you later.
Yeah, so it's really hard when folks do that. And my mom was like, that's also how I knew not to keep testing you because you didn't budge, you didn't move, you know. That was also very hard. So there was times where I was just like, I used to say to my mom all the time, do you think I would choose this path to fight with you or to fight with anybody in this world? Like, that's stupid. Why would I want to fight? Like, but I also don't want to not be myself. So we got to find a middle ground. And I think the middle ground is not fighting over what I want to be. I'm not arguing with you over who you want to be. You know, it was always that kind of feeling, but nothing deep.
But then, you know, like when you're performing, like Calvin Arsinia talks about this, like there's a part of you, you're presenting yourself, you're putting yourself out there in a performance, right? You're kind of hoping people like it.
Yeah, but
you know, but there's that sense of, will they accept me? Will they reject me? You know what I'm saying? And so it's not just for this time of transition, but even for you musically. And
I was going to say, I think not even on stage, but as a trans artist in the hip hop world is something I've been like kind of stomaching and like, I don't know if I'm actually going to make it in the hip hop world because of society. But what does making it look like for some folks? I don't know. You know, I've changed that definition for myself so many times, especially last year, of what that actually looks like. But I do get nervous. I'm like, do these people want me on a podcast or radio series or this? Because now I'm going to get like victimized, you know, or is it going to be a bad experience or am I only getting invited on the show? Or that's a big thing too. When I went on tour was like spaces, you know, and it's always that big thing with the bathrooms and trans folks in bathrooms. And so now I'm like, you know, like so out, so open. People know I'm trans. They see me in the back. How would they feel? You know? And so I think about that stuff. It's like, it's not like I'm stealth, what they call some trans folks who you don't know. I tell people all the time, you shared a bathroom with a trans person and you don't even know it. Don't argue me up and down. Like I bet you your whole entire life paycheck in this lifetime you shared bathrooms with trans folks and not even have known it. And so like that was like, you know, my argument now, and I'm just like, that's one of the biggest fears. So small, but music venues, you know, I'm like out in this world existing as a Black trans man is scary.
Yeah. And in the Black hip hop community, there's not like, it's, you're still kind of on a pioneering edge there, right?
Triple edge now. I'm like, oh man, it's not only a Black man musician that people point fingers at. Now I got a target where half the Black community point fingers at too. And so it's just like, it's an experience to navigate. And I've also found a whole bunch of community ever since coming out and being authentic and being myself. I'm in connecting with folks who may not share many identities that look like myself, like you, right? But they connect off my music and stuff that's inside of theirs.
Yeah.
Beauty of it.
Yeah. I had a lady recently, I released a podcast a few weeks ago with a guy who was a conservative fundamental Baptist white guy. tried to pray the gay away since he was a little kid, since he could remember his sexual, having sexual feelings, and kept thinking, oh, I'll go to college and it'll go away, or I'll get married and I'll have kids, it'll go away. He became a conservative fundamental Baptist pastor, and he just tried to pray it away his whole life, and it just never worked. He even went to this thing called Exodus International, which is kind of like a Christian conversion therapy thing. And there's a documentary out called Pray Away that captured what the world that he was in, and it just never ever worked, right? And so he finally came out. He's married now with his husband, but he wrote a book called Godly but
Happy Now.
Yeah, Godly but Gay. And it was so fascinating. So a lady in my church back in 2014 had a daughter that wanted to transition. Mm-hmm. And because we hadn't been front and center about kind of the support, I was supported behind the scenes, but not front and center, right? She didn't think I would support her. She ended up leaving the church because she supported her son now, who's 25 now. And we've since reconnected because she's been following me and listening to some of the stuff I've been doing. And she said that when she tried to find support as a parent in 2014, she could only network. She found on Facebook, like in Canada and America, only about 200 parents who were from these conservative environments who didn't know what to do with their kids who were LGBTQ. These were like parents.
Love them.
Yeah, right. Imagine that. Right. But I mean, these are people who were really wrestling with their belief systems and how they'd been raised and all that. And so, but today, she told me today, it's just a conversation we had a few weeks ago, that there are now over 8,000 women networked in America and Canada. And I could put together a group of 12 parents, 12 different families right now who all have young kids going through this, or young, either young kids or young teenagers or young adults. And so there is a growing support, but there's still a lot of resistance in some of your more conservative churches, and so it's challenging, I think, from some people who have grown up in a very strict, this is sin, and those kind of things, and then how they wrestle with that, as parents, some of the parents that are out there, like your mom did on the early stages. Sounds like she's supported you. Sounds like your brother supports you now.
When I came out as trans, my mom was just like, now that makes sense. Support from there just was skyrocketed. Uh-huh. I remember I called her and let her know I got approved for top surgery, and she was like, I'm not going to miss it. And she came up and was there. And when I went in surgery, I was so nervous, like the only second surgery I ever had in my life. So I was like, oh, whew, it was big for me. And so, yeah, I've been very supportive. She also told me when I first came out, she joined groups. She found groups. I don't know if they were as such. Mm-hmm. Like on Facebook of like parents of trans kids and like figuring it out.
Right.
But I have learned as an advocate now and somebody who goes and like do a lot of talks, especially with folks and working with nonprofits, that not only are we transitioning, our folks are, our parents are transitioning as well, right? Our families are with us. And so it's a learning curve for everyone. And I will speak for myself, wasn't as empathetic to my parents' transitioning process, because I wanted them to get it right away. So upset because I felt like I went through so much, but it's all a process for everybody. And so I think if everybody meets people where they are and kind of just engage from there, we can make it.
Well, I like what you said. Listen, when I asked you that question, listen. And I do think there's an art to listening and hearing people deeply and finding the true dignity and beauty in every person. Mm-hmm. If we listen long enough, you find it, you hear it, You hear it. The
answers are always out.
Yeah.
We just sometimes are doing too much, talking too much, being too much, and not listening,
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for doing this. I told you I'd honor your time here, and we're out of time. But tell people if they want to check your music out, and are you doing some touring in 2023? Will you be back in Kansas City anytime? What's going on?
Yeah,
Give us a quick rundown on all that.
Yes, new music dropping actually January 3rd. So next week. Right in the new year, I have a new single dropping and a project to follow. So you should follow me. It's going to be a nice, beautiful year with Cuee. I will be in Kansas City in February for a little bit, getting some work done. And so I would love to say hello to folks. May have a pop-up show somewhere, so I'll let y'all know if that comes about. I will be doing a lot of traveling next year, and I'll keep y'all in touch with what's happening. Follow me on social platforms at Cuee Music, Cuee Music. That's everywhere. Anywhere you want to find me, just don't fight me. Anywhere you want to find me, just
Cuee Music.
Yes.
On Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
All of that is
cueemusic.com.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And let's stay connected and follow me on this journey.
Yeah. When you're back in Kansas City, shoot us. Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd love to see you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to Spirituality Adventures. We're so glad you did. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.
This concludes today's episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Remember to like, share, or subscribe to the social media platform that you're using. And then go to our website, spiritualityadventures.com, and make a one-time donation, or you can subscribe monthly and receive our special bonus content. Thanks so much.